Welcome to the Mixing Babies and Business podcast. I'm your host, Amy Lynch. I'm covering all things parenthood, business, flexible, and remote work with kids. Think of it as your virtual village where you can tune into stories from other business and community leaders who also happen to be parents negotiating for their needs, taking up space, and navigating the future of work. Season 6 is sponsored by the Mixing Babies and Business Changemaker program for people who want to do things differently, create an impact, and advocate for primary caregivers and their families along the way. Sign up to learn more at mixingbabiesandbusiness.com/changemaker. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, like, follow, and leave a review online. It helps other parents find the podcast. Rita Piçarra is a parent, author, speaker, and former chief financial officer at Microsoft Portugal. With over 20 years of experience in finance and leadership roles spanning the United States, Brazil, France, Spain, and Portugal, Rita spoke with me about her upbringing and how it influenced her future choices, negotiating for flexibility as a new parent, retiring at the age of 44, and the importance of financial literacy. This is the first of 3 mini episodes of our conversation. Let's get into it. Thank you for joining me today, Rita. I found you on LinkedIn and your biography intrigued me because not only do you openly speak about the fact that you have retired at age 44, but you openly speak about how having a child has influenced your work-life balance, but also how much of an influence your parents have had on you from your early years until now. So do you care to share a bit more about how your parents have influenced you over the years and just why you have become so open about sharing that, the family influence on your life and your work?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here today and speak about all these topics. My parents had a major influence in my life. First, the way they raised me to show the importance about not just earning money, but that money is something that doesn't come easily. And so it's very important that we take care of money. We understand where money is coming from. They were also people who dedicated themselves to the community. My mother was a teacher for kids with physical and mental challenges. And my father also created a nonprofit organization in my community where we lived, which is a suburb of Lisbon, not the ones that we like to be recognized from. And so that all the kids could have a place to play after they come from school. So my parents really raised me to pay attention to the community, to make sure that everyone is included, that everyone feels safe, but also that we need to be successful in life so that we have a security, a financial security to be able to take care of ourselves and never be in the risk of not having money, not having a ceiling over our heads and having food in our table. So for me, growing up, there was a lot of pressure, but also a lot of pride, let's say, in making my parents, look at me and say, okay, she's going on the right trend and she's going to achieve great things. So I was always a straight A student in school, in high school. And so when time came to go to college, I was the first person in my family to attend college. None of my parents, my grandparents, or my sister who is older, they didn't went. So it was very expected for me to go, which I did. And I attended university, I graduated. But after, I don't know, even 5 years ago or so, I had a nightmare about how I didn't finish college. Someone called me overnight and I didn't finish. So every time I wake up with this nightmare, I have to look at my diploma. Look, I finished, it's here. And so when I finished college and, my parents were very proud, my community was very proud, I had to know that I had to continue to pursue a career, something where I would earn money and be in a stable position. I had this mentor, which is actually a professor at high school, and he told me that I should go to auditing because auditing, I would work a lot, but at the same time earn decent money. And so those words made a lot of sense because, earning some money, who doesn't want to? Working a lot, I think it's expected from all of us. So I started my career in Deloitte and I worked a lot. We're talking about from 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. almost every single day, including weekends. At some point in time, about 4 years later, I realized that I wanted a little bit more. Money was important, of course, but work-life balance was just not where I wanted it to be. I didn't have a boyfriend. I couldn't attend any birthdays. I couldn't attend doctor's appointment. It was really, really a disastrous life. Only half of it made sense, which was I was progressing, I was evolving, I was earning money, I was climbing the corporate ladder, but at what cost? It wasn't making sense. And so at that point in Portugal, there was a soccer match that became very famous in Portugal where a professional soccer player, he fell to the floor victim of a heart attack live on television. And for me, that had, a crucial impact because I looked at him, I thought that this is a professional player that just dies in the field suddenly, no expectations whatsoever. And what is it stopping from happening to me? That I'm working day and night to earn money, to be successful. I wanted a change. I wanted to change something in my life. And so I did. I quit Deloitte and I sent a lot of resumes. In my resume in LinkedIn, it looks like I left Deloitte one day and joined Microsoft the other. Of course, that's not what happened. I sent it a lot of CVs. Eventually, I did get accepted to join Microsoft. I remember my father saying, "What are you going to do? You have a fixed contract with Deloitte and then you're going to move to that IT company. God knows what the computers are going to be in the future." And I said, "You know what? I think this is the right way to go. At least, I'm going to try to fight for some flexibility and for more work-life balance than what I have right now, which is none." And so I joined Microsoft and immediately I made a career development plan based on my aspirations. I wanted to be the CFO. And a lot of people laughed in my face when I said this was 2005, I was 26-year-old when I said, well, I want to be the CFO of Microsoft Portugal. A lot of people took seriously and helped me on my career development plan, but also a lot of people kind of made fun of me and laughed in my face, like, you coming from the suburbs of Lisbon, being the CFO of Microsoft? Nah. But for 12 years, I grew within Microsoft. I did all the roles that were expected. As you said, I started here in Portugal, went to Seattle, went to Paris, went to Brazil, went to Miami, went to Madrid. And then in 2018, I came back to Microsoft Portugal as the CFO of Microsoft. So I developed all the competencies. I developed everything that was expected from me to reach that goal. But a lot of things happened in between. I got married, I had a kid, but at the same time, both my parents also passed away. My father died at the age of 54 with a heart attack, and my mom died at 59 with cancer called multiple myeloma. I think that's the translation. And with both deaths of my parents, something else came to my mind, which is, why am I doing all this? I am very ambitious. I do want to grow. I do want to be the CFO of Microsoft Portugal, but what if I die at the age of 54 like my dad? Don't I get to experience, life after retirement? Like when I'm going to see my kids grow up or my grandkids be born. My sister had her baby 6 days just before my father died. That got me thinking a lot. And so even though I have always been very, very ambitious and I did want it to be the CFO of Microsoft Portugal, my career development plan ended by the age of 50. I said, you know what? I'm going to fight for this until I turn 50. If I get it, great. If I don't, I'm leaving the corporate world behind. I'm retiring at the age of 50. And so I made a very, very tenacious financial plan that would include a lot of savings, of course, but also a lot of investments in the stock market and investments in the real estate so that I could secure passive rent, passive income to retire at the age of 50. Fortunately, a lot of things came across much better than I expected, and that became true at the age of 44.
Wow, that is quite the journey. I'm sorry to hear of your parents passing, and I think you shared a lot of important points there. One was career development plan, which we haven't talked about too often on the podcast, but I did one of those with one of my first contracts after I finished university there, and it was through a government role I had. And I remember writing out that I wanted to be able to work for myself from wherever in the world, so do remote work, because my husband was from another country, I was from another country, and we were living in another country. So I knew we would have to have some flexibility, and if we ever wanted to have a family, which we did, that would come into play. And within 2 years, I had manifested that by way of changing contracts a few different times. But it's funny how things can come into your life or opportunities can appear, especially when you write it down. And we don't often talk too much about the final goal or the age or the limit or the setting that line in the sand of where you want to transition. So you've mentioned quite a few important things, but I'm going to just rewind a bit in your story, because you not only became a CFO of Microsoft Portugal as you desired, you were able to negotiate flexibility to be able to drop your daughter off at school, pick her up. Aside from that, you were a champion surfer when you were a teenager. So you seem to have this drive, not only to achieve from your career, but you have this personal drive, and you seem to be someone who's very self-led. And it's been written about the fact that you do things that you expect others to do, but you do them first before you ask others. You seem to have a wonderful approach to life that way. So, and be a positive force for change. Your daughter's 12 now. So how has becoming a parent maybe changed the way that you approach your work and your career goals, if at all, during your life?
One of the important things when you have a corporate career is to establish priorities, not just corporate priorities, objectives, your personal priorities. A lot of people say, oh, but when they read about my story, oh, you never married or you never had kids. To be that successful, it's impossible to get married and to have kids. And I usually say, no, I am married and I do have one kid. So, but how did you do it? No one else can do it. Like, no, there's a lot of people who do it. It's a question of priorities. Before Teresa, my daughter, was born, my main priority was to be healthy and to go to the gym and to make sure that I spended, enough time on myself. Once Teresa, and so going to the gym was always a priority. I always carved out, and it has always been in my agenda, time to go to the gym. It's been blocked like a meeting, like a normal meeting. This time I go to the gym. Once Teresa was born, I can tell you one story. She was born in Brazil, and then when she was more or less 1 year old, we moved to Miami. It was my first week in Miami. I enrolled Teresa in a kindergarten, and when I enrolled, they said, the pickup time is 5 p.m. the latest. Like, you cannot be late after 5 p.m. If you are late 1 minute, we will charge you $5 per minute. I said, yes, no, I'm never late. I'm very respectful of time. And then Thursday that week, I left the office. There was a huge accident in the I-95, so the main north-south bounds in Miami, and I got late. I was running late. The GPS was just delaying. And so I called the kindergarten saying that I was going to be late, and they made me feel like the worst parent in the face of the earth. That my daughter was there alone, hungry. And I started crying in the car, and I felt like the worst human being in the face of the earth, the worst mom or parent there is. And so eventually I arrived 7 minutes late. They made me pay $35. But after that, the following day, I arrived to the office and I had a conversation with my manager saying that if I wanted to be successful in that new role, an imperative thing for me was to be happy with my daughter and my husband. And for that meant that every day at 4 p.m. I would have to leave the office to be able to pick up Teresa in time, not have those awful feelings in the car of not being able to reach out. And so after that, I would get home and connect again and complete whatever tasks they were needed or mandatory, or if there's a deadline that needed action upon. But having a manager and being able to expose this feeling and to expose this priority that I wanted to make for myself, it makes all the difference. Because what would be the options that I would have? Try out in the car and then the next day say nothing to my manager and then be unsuccessful at my role, be completely miserable in my personal life and be not successful. So if it's something that is important when we become parents, is to create these non-negotiable priorities that we feel will make the difference to our daughters, to our sons, to our life, to our personal life. And so that's the main thing that I changed when I became a mom, was to make sure that I had these non-negotiable priorities that for me were as important as any other business related priorities that I would have.
Big thanks to Rita for taking part of her day to speak with me about parenthood, work, and financial literacy. Stay tuned for the next 2 episodes where we'll talk about negotiating for flexibility and what the financial independence, retire early movement and building a life outside of work looks like for her. Check out her work and follow her on LinkedIn at Rita Piçarra. That's Picarra. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, or follow and leave a review. It helps other parents around the world find the podcast. Connect with me online and access your parent-friendly, entrepreneurship, flexible, and remote work resources at mixingbabiesandbusiness.com. Thanks for listening.